Day of May 2020. Time's flying pretty fast, and the month is running as fast, and so is the week. And I'm glad to be here with you this morning. As always, it is Morning Cafe. My name is Linda Alela. It is that time that we take a look at what is happening, of course, on Matters News. As we delve deep into understanding this, we'll be having gurus that will help us, just get to understand, decipher on these particular topics that we'll be looking at. So one important thing is to know that we have a visitor in the country. That is the President of Tanzania, as of course they focus much on rebuilding that tainted image of East African integrity. Importantly, that relationship that existed back then between Kenya and Tanzania. At some point in time it got shaky, but it looks like times are changing and it's going to get better indeed. That's what we all expected, and we hope that this is just not going to be an aspect of policy and word and documents. It should be implemented as of what we had seen yesterday in regards to some of the key things that have been addressed. We'll be looking at that as we proceed with the broadcast. Importantly, even as Mama Samia Suluhu, her son, that is the President of Tanzania, is set to address a joint session of Parliament, and we're looking forward to see what plays out in regards to that, even as indeed Parliament had to hold their conversation on matters Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020. That is as they await that address, or in respect to that address, and the stalemate continues, and still not so clear as to what way BBI. We'll get to discuss that alongside the guests this morning. We'll be having a member of Parliament. He'll tell us what the situation is like, a clear picture. Differently from what our very own Elizabeth has painted, but then that is not to wash away what it is that she does, because, well, indeed, she's always here to give us comprehensive coverage of what plays out in Parliament and on matters governance and politics. So we look at all that this morning. Later on, we discuss matters relationships. Where is my Mr. Right? And so we ask you, where is your Mr. Right? And when we are asking that question, it's not to say that we are going to say, voila, here is your Mr. Right. No. It is simple. We will just get to understand some of the key things that we need to look for in a man. But even as we do that, what do you do yourself to make sure that you are ready for a man? And how do you make the best of that man that comes into your life? So karibu sana. All this, is a jammed up affair, jammed up in a good way, because then you get to learn, you get to be entertained, you get to be part and parcel of the conversation. The hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV 47KE. My pleasure always to have you alongside, me as we take ourselves through these particular sessions. The newspaper and the People Daily is here this morning, the 5th of May. Speaker rules out changes to BBI. A story captured on page 4 and 5. National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi addressed the journalists yesterday in the Parliament buildings, and he expounded some more on the communication in the House in regards to the BBI bill, while some legislators would argue that they'd want to make some changes, amendments in the BBI bill. The arguments and the things that he raised on board, which we'll be looking at as we proceed with the broadcast, he says, have been looked into, and therefore there is no point for Parliament to proceed and make any changes on this particular document. It's going to be an interesting one. And even as we say, we're looking for Mr. Right, get split billions before divorcing. This is something that got very many people, asking themselves, just what do men want? Just what do women want? Sometimes relationships can really be complicated. Well, we do not celebrate when people divorce, but then again, sometimes it has to happen. If things are not working in there, forget about money, overlook the investments that you've made. Just chart the way forward, part ways, let any of you, every one of you, go their way, find happiness somewhere else. And so it was a shocker, was of course that declaration of a divorce, and amidst the split of billions of dollars that of course gets hard to part ways with, and just to settle this conversation of a divorce with the wife. And We also have this one, new dawn for Kenya-Tanzania relations. I started by mentioning that. And Uhuru and Suluhu outlined various measures to improve ties between the two countries and increase trade and investment between Dar and Nairobi. 6 and 7, these are the pages that this has been expounded on. The border between Kenya and Tanzania is the biggest compared to other countries, that is within the East African, to other countries, but on that border there is neighborhood among Kenyans and Tanzanians, and it's not been easy to do business because of the animosity that has been there, and also the tight policies that have been put with the two countries, Kenya its own, Tanzania its own. But it looks like it's going to be a different affair, even as the two presidents seek to have these two countries interact and also trade seamlessly. That is indeed something that is celebrated. This is truly a historic visit, as President Uhuru Kenyatta would say, a visit that gives direction to relations between the two countries, a relationship that began way back while we were fighting for our independence. And we wait to see how this plays out. Like we say, our biggest request then would be, it should not be a matter of policy or paperwork or documentation. It should be something that should be implemented ASAP, so that we are also able to conduct these businesses as, of course, has been declared. Board registers Chinese herbal drugs to boost COVID-19 fight, and PPB board says Kenyans who have used the medicines testified that these hugely worked, and in a huge way they felt better. So the Pharmacy and Poisons Board has registered 3 herbal drugs by Chinese traditional medicine manufacturers to boost the war against COVID-19. A 4th local herbal product in the process of registration with PPB. As Director of Product Registration and Evaluation, Dr. Ronald Inyangala says they are still monitoring them. Well, if it comes in handy, then definitely that is what we are seeking. Still on matters health, we are not to blame for ARV stalemate, says a taxman. Kenya Revenue Authority has distanced itself from the stalemate surrounding delays in release of antiretroviral drugs at a meeting that was called yesterday in the National Assembly Health Committee, and the KRA said that January it had cleared about 78 containers of medical supplies consigned to Miss Chemo Mix, and only 13 consignments are lying at the port pending customs clearance. That is a story that has been making headlines across, even as there are a lot of fears as to what then the fate of these individuals are, because it's important that they get this medicine constantly, so that to avoid scenarios where they'll have to have difficult times as they survive. Anyway, that one is something that has been ongoing. We wait to see how best it can be addressed, so that these individuals are able to get the medicine on time. KCSE markers protest slashed allowances is one thing that we looked at yesterday. And of course, we wait to see how the Ministry of Education is going to work on these. Gates divorce stands focus on charity, and so much more. And on the front page of the Daily Nation, Uhuru and Suluhu hit the reset button. Here you go. A fresh start for Kenya and Tanzania. They have announced a number of trade deals on President Samia's first official visit to Nairobi, highlighting the two neighboring countries' readiness to turn the page on recent squabbles that have impeded cross-border flow of investment. A story captured on page 8 and 9, and therefore is something that we look forward to see. And also as we await that address by Mama Suluhu, to the joint set of parliament. And away from that matters education, blow to Sosion as court upholds his sacking as a teacher, even though he will lose his benefits as a teacher. Embattled Nat Secretary General will still defend his seat in the June elections. A story captured on the back page, of the Daily Nation. So much playing out in regards to matters education in the country, and the sector has officially been termed as a sector of squabbles. But then again, things have been moving all the same, and we hope they are able to address some of these issues for also seamless, processes of our students learning, especially at this point where there is an incorporation of the new system of education, that is the competency-based curriculum, as of course a program that has just been introduced, still in its inception stages. We can only hope that it works out well. And a different story. Let's see that one on gates. Of course, we've touched on that. And also a different one. U.S. mulls moving ARVs to another country in tax row. And life-saving antiretroviral drugs have been stuck at the port of Mombasa for close to 4 months. We have touched on that also. A story captured on page 10. And on matters BBI, Raila cracks the whip on a party rebels over BBI bill. And ODM leader Raila Odinga has moved to stem dissent over the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 in his party's rank and file, with the first victim being a Rarieda Member of Parliament, Otiende Amolo, who has been kicked out of the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. Senate Minority Leader James Orengo has also been accused of going against the party's leader, or the party leader's position on the proposals. He is next on the chopping board. Is he? Is a question that is being asked right here. Story captured on page 5. Those are the key stories, as of course captured on the front page or the front pages of the newspapers that we have this morning. We'll also be looking at what has been captured on the standard newspapers even as we proceed with the broadcast. Briefly on what is happening on the roads, I have not detected much in terms of traffic. The key roads, of course, Jogoo Road, Mombasa Road, Thika Road, Ngong Road, Langata, not much of traffic down here. Mombasa Road, from Imara Daima, you would definitely expect some level of traffic. As you can see, there is roadworks or some roadworks that are happening down there. As you get to connect yourself from the airport road and to Mombasa Road, tenets of traffic quite heavy around Imara Daima, but then it eases up as you proceed on. And as you can see, it doesn't look as ugly as has always been. Well, again, some tenets of traffic around here, and well, it is moving. While it could be there, it is moving, going down to the Nyayo National Stadium, and from the Nyayo National Stadium you get to connect to Lusaka Road on this other side, where you find that it's clear until you get to this point where you connect from Lusaka Road to Jogoo Road. Then you find that there's some tenets of traffic around Makadara, around Shaurimoyo there, and also this side as you're trying to get yourself into the city around Majengo, you find these tenets of traffic. But then again, it is flowing, not as bad as one would probably expect. And on this other side, there is Langata Road. And Langata Road doesn't look so bad this morning. As you can see, Langata Road, the southern bypass is also on this other side as you connect. Evidently not looking so bad. And the roadwork still ongoing. Bagadi Way is not looking as ugly as you get yourself into the city, or also as you get to connect somewhere around to Mombasa Road. It is not all bad. And the other key road, Ngong Road here, is not looking as bad as you can tell. And if you're getting yourself into the city or away from the city, evidently Ngong Road doesn't look as bad. Gitanga Road on this other side, as you connect yourself to those sides of Kawangware, not much of traffic. This sides of Naivasha Road, Kikuyu Road, James Gishuru on this other end is also not looking bad this morning. And same applies to Wayaki Way. Roadwork still ongoing, but Wayaki Way is not looking so bad this morning. Some tenets of traffic that are evidently moving, and so if taking that direction, no need to worry on this other side. And you can tell the Muru Road is also all clear, going all the way to Ruaka as you proceed up, and around Banana as you divert are evidently not looking so bad around Runda here, and getting to these sides of Muthaiga and the Muthaiga Road, the roads within Muthaiga, not looking so bad. Kiambu Road on this other side is also all rosy this morning. This is the northern bypass, not looking so bad this morning. As you get yourself connected to these sides of Kahawa West and you take this particular road, Committee Road, is not looking so bad. And from Committee Road, you come and fall or find yourself somewhere around Thika Road. And going a bit back from Githurai, Thika Road is looking all good. And you proceed all the way down up until you get somewhere around Muthaiga. As you get to connect to these different roads, Muthaiga Road and all that, is when you experience some level of traffic. But, well, it is not as bad because it's as you get yourself into the city, it is up down to Pangani, and then you find yourself into the city. It's pretty much of an ease. All the roads around Gara not looking so bad this morning, and therefore no cause for alarm. From Thika Road into these sides of Outer Ring, as you get to connect from all sorts around there, Juja Road, you can tell, is not looking bad as you got to connect also to Outer Ring. Outer Ring not all bad until you get to this spot of around Donholm Rail. Manyanja Road, as you get to that connection. Feather Estate is not looking bad this morning. The places where there's some bit of traffic, it is not so bad. It is moving. And so I'll be here to make sure that you are updated in the event that there'll be need for that. Otherwise, it's important that you also update us on what is happening. We're looking forward to make us know, or to at least allow everyone else know what direction they should take and what direction they should avoid. Let's look at what my team has prepared. And as mentioned earlier on, Tanzania President Samia Suluhu has arrived in the country yesterday morning, marking the start of her 2-day visit, whose top agenda is to restore diplomatic ties between Kenya and Tanzania. Suluhu was welcomed by President Uhuru Kenyatta at a State House, where the two held bilateral talks in the afternoon. The Tanzanian president is expected to address a joint sitting of the National Assembly and the Senate before meeting the local business community as well as investors today, as David Mudoka tells us.
Aboard an Air Tanzania A220-300 Airbus, Tanzania President Samia Suluhu Hassan jetted into the country just minutes past 9:30 a.m. on Tuesday, marking the start of her much-awaited 2-day state visit. At the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, President Suluhu was received by Cabinet Secretaries Rachel Omamo and Amina Mohamed before proceeding to State House, where she was officially welcomed into the country by President Uhuru Kenyatta. At State House, President Suluhu's maiden visit went down in style as she was accorded elaborate state honors, among them the inspection of a guard of honor and a 21-gun salute. A few hours later, both Suluhu and Kenyatta addressed the nation, where they disclosed the subject of the visit that comes at a time when Kenya and Tanzania have had bruising fights over diplomacy and cross-border trade policies in the past 4 years. Such differences have threatened to slow down trade between the two countries, which amounts to 61.5 billion shillings annually.
Tanzania na Kenya sio tu majirani, lakini ujirani wenyewe ni wa kindugu. Alisema pia kwamba ukiangalia mipaka inayozunguka Kenya, mpaka wao na Tanzania ndio mkubwa kuliko mipaka ya nchi nyingine zote.
Wewe tunakuona kama dada yetu. Wewe tunakuona kama ndugu yetu. Na nchi ya Tanzania na nchi ya Kenya ni kitu kimoja, na safari hii itaenda mbali sana.
And in what seemed as the two heads of state, one in his final term and the other fresh into office, extending an olive branch to each other, the two went on to unveil various key projects that will bolster ties between Kenya and Tanzania.
Lakini jengine aliloliongeza Mheshimiwa Rais, na mimi nakubaliana nalo, ni kwa waziri wetu wa afya kukaa na kurahisisha mfumo wa kuingia na kuchekiwa kwenye mambo haya yaliyoingia ya COVID au corona, watu wetu wapate huduma za haraka.
Tumeweka mikataba haswa ya mambo kuhusu kujenga pipeline ya gas kutoka Dar es Salaam mpaka Mombasa.
Nitumie lugha ya Mheshimiwa Rais, tutaweka kidole hivi karibuni, lakini pia na mwingine tuko kwenye mazungumzo kuumaliza.
President Suluhu later visited the Kenyatta Mausoleum at Parliament grounds, where she, in the footsteps of her predecessor John Magufuli in October 2016, lay a wreath in honor of the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. On her second and last day in the country, President Suluhu will address a joint sitting of the National Assembly and Senate. She is later set to speak to business leaders from Kenya and Tanzania to discuss business and investment opportunities in the two countries. David Mudhoka, TV47.
And on the same note, Kenyans living on the border of Hispania on the Kenya-Tanzania border have expressed great optimism that the visit will help amend trade and bilateral relations between the two neighbors. Migori small-scale traders say that Kenyan businessmen have suffered unfairly in the hands of the Tanzanian authorities with unbalanced trade regulations compared to their Tanzanian counterparts now, who do their trade or do they actually their trade in Kenya. Migori County small-scale traders have deep trade ties with Tarime town in Tanzania, where they buy and sell fruits, rice, maize and vegetables.
Kwa kwamba miji yetu ya Migori tuko na Watanzania wengi wanauza vitu, lakini sisi tukienda boda kununua vitu kuja kuuza haturuhusiwi. Maskari wanatukalia mpaka uruhusiwi kufika hata Tarime. Mimi mwenyewe kanya mwenyekiti siku moja nimeenda huko Tarime, lakini sikufika. Nilipofika katikati ya daraja inaitwa Kirumi, kabla sijafika Tarime lilisimamishwa mpaka nikarudishwa nikarudi Kenya.
Tumepata shida sana juu saa hii wafanyikazi wamerudi chini, hakuna biashara, imeshuka. Watanzania wakuji, wa Kenya pia waendi pande ile. Tulikuwa tunaomba marais hao wawili waungane watusaidie ili angalau tupate riziki.
Kuna changamoto tunapitia tukienda kule kwa sababu hasiwezi kuepukika kama mpaka imefungwa. Sasa inabidi tukipita nyuma, maskari wa Tanzania huwa wanatusumbua kupita nyuma. Sasa nimefurahi sana kumsikia mama wetu rais wa Tanzania ako nchi wa Migori. Kama mimi mmoja wao kwa wafanyabiashara, nilikuwa naomba atakapoenda kule Tanzania, sisi ni kama majirani, atutengenezee jinsi tutakapokuwa tunafuata mzigo tunaingia kwa njia iliyo rahisi.
And 12 human rights groups in East Africa have petitioned Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan to publicly denounce repression of human rights defenders, journalists and political activists in Tanzania. They say close to 200 people were jailed illegally during Magufuli's reign.
Addressing the media a few hours after the arrival of Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan in the country for a two-day visit, the groups led by Haki Africa's Executive Director Khalid Hussein called on the new President of Tanzania to ensure the more than 200 human rights defenders, journalists and political activists who may still be incarcerated in prisons across Tanzania are released.
Sisi tunaonelea itakuwa vizuri akiweza kuwafikia wote walioko kwenye upinzani, walioko kwenye makundi ya kijamii, walioko katika vyombo vya habari ambapo labda katika serikali ya awali walijipata katika mshike na serikali. Kwa hivyo ndio kama mashirika ya kutoka pande zote za Afrika tunamuomba Mama Suluhu awalete wote kwa pamoja, wakiwemo viongozi wa kisiasa na Watanzania kwa jumla.
According to the human rights groups, their arrests are linked to the 2020 general election during the tenure of the former president, the late John Pombe Magufuli. The groups also warned other African leaders who still exhibit dictatorial tendencies.
Awe ni mfano mzuri kwa wanaume, wale marais wanaume ambao labda wanaendelea kunyanyasa wananchi wao. Yeye awe katika mstari wa mbele kuwaonesha kwamba tunaweza kuongoza na kuheshimu haki za binadamu.
Suluhu has exhibited a subtle approach compared to her predecessor soon after her swearing in. President Suluhu ordered for the reopening of media outlets closed under Magufuli's reign.
What remains is to see whether the Tanzanian new president, Samia Suluhu, will release over 200 activists arrested during last year's general election in Tanzania. Daniel Masiza, TV 47.
Now, National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi has ruled out any possibility of amending Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020. The Speaker says the bill is a popular initiative and cannot be amended by members of Parliament. And as Elizabeth Mutuku now reports, a section of members of Parliament allied to ODM boss Raila Odinga have been pushing for the amendments.
As Parliament debates the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 ahead of voting and its passage in the bicameral House, National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi has ruled out any possibilities of amending the bill.
And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I don't agree with those proponents that we cannot amend this bill. If you read Article 257 to the letter, nothing ousts the authority of Parliament to amend a bill, including a bill such as this.
Because it's a popular initiative, it is not tenable. It is illogical to entertain a view that Parliament can amend it during its consideration. And I think for me, it makes a lot of sense that because you are not the promoters, if the promoters do not convince the majority of Kenyans at the referendum, then the bill will be lost. But you cannot hijack the intention of the promoters at Parliament level.
Addressing the media on Tuesday at Parliament buildings, Muturi said the bill is constitutional and popular initiative bill, clearing doubts by section of members that the bill was parliamentary and emanated from executive.
It is my strong view that this is neither a parliamentary initiative nor is it a popular initiative, because those are the only two approaches by which a constitutional amendment can be initiated. It is neither of them. Instead, it is a legal hermaphrodite unknown to our Constitution, having been initiated by the executive with the unfortunate support of the opposition, and the people were roped in at the very end in a desperate attempt to sanitize an illegal process.
And it does not become executive merely because some minister, cabinet minister, or some principal secretary, or some members of Parliament have signed it in support. It suffices that it is still a bill by popular initiative, not a parliamentary initiative. A parliamentary initiative is the one provided for in Article 256, and such a move does not go to the counties. The requirement is only to publish it for a period of 90 days so that people can have, can look at it and see what it is that the person desiring to amend through a parliamentary initiative is providing.
On controversial creation of an ombudsman office, which is majorly seen as threat to the independence of judiciary, Muturi says the clause will allow JSC to discipline rogue judges, unlike the current setup.
If this bill is going, and this bill is going to be taken to a referendum, if the people in the referendum go and pass it and tell you you are going to have JSC, you are going to have power to discipline judges, because currently they only discipline registrars, magistrates, and other judicial officers. They are being given more work more power to discipline those senior ones. You have seen it recently when judges are being interviewed.
Once Parliament passes the bill as it is, the bill will proceed to President, who will then forward to IBC to organize a referendum. With more interests arising from members of Parliament concerning the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020, it seems it might take longer in the House before a decision is arrived at. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV 47, Palm Buildings, Nairobi.
Further on that, a revered member of Parliament, Otiende Amolo, has been removed from the National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, JLAC. Now, the ODM lawmaker advocated for changes in the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 against the interest of ODM party leader Raila Odinga. The committee changes were swift during a sitting of the August House presided over by Speaker Justin Muturi Tuesday afternoon.
The Orange Democratic Movement Party, or ODM, has kicked out Rienda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo from the National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. The change was communicated by Majority Leader Amos Kimunya and seconded by Minority Leader John Mbadi during the afternoon session of the August House.
Honorable Francis Tom Joseph Kajwang, MP, to be appointed to the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs to replace the Honorable Otiende Amolo, MP.
Mr. Speaker, the selection committee sat yesterday and did some reorganization for the better functioning of the National Assembly.
Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it, honourable members.
Otiende and a host of ODM lawmakers, led by Siaya Senator James Orengo, were supporting an amendment to BBI bill in Parliament, an issue opposed by ODM party leader Raila Odinga. A major conflict of interest has ensued since JLAC is the committee deliberating the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, popularly known as the BBI.
Parliament will either pass or reject. Is it in vain? Ask yourself.
In terms of the issues that were brought before the House, we must answer those questions.
Where we have identified pitfalls, we have suggested how you overcome them.
This comes barely a day after ODM assured its supporters and the general public that its members are allowed to differ on the constitutional review since the party is a democratic institution. ODM chairman John Mbadi took advantage of the changes in the membership of specified committees to hit back at Otiende, who in a previous sitting challenged Mbadi's legal know-how.
Professors of law like John Mbadi is saying it's not true. But that is okay, because that is your view. I am talking about the law. John Mbadi, you've not stepped in law school, so just allow me.
Tom Joseph Kajwang is joining. He may not be a professor in law, but is the People's Chief Justice, and so is well versed in legal matters, and I wish him well in that committee.
The Rarieda parliamentarian was immediately replaced as the vice chairperson by his Ruaraka counterpart TJ Kajwang. The 27-member committee is led by Kangema Member of Parliament Muturi Kegano. Grace Josephine for TV47.
All right, welcome back. And well, from news, it's now time that we get to our different thing altogether. We're looking at the conversation this morning and also what has been captured on the paper. I have the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, and the People Daily. With me this morning, Honorable James Gakuya, Member of Parliament in Bakassi North, and joining us virtually, Honorable Degwa Wahome, who's the Chair, County Assemblies Forum, and we'll be getting into the conversation as we look deeply into what it is. The fate of the BBI is. Good to have you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for always creating time, sir.
Thank you.
Mheshimiwa, how are you?
Yes, Leader, good morning. I'm well.
Good to have you. Asante sana for honoring our call.
Thank you.
All right. So now we have the papers here. I don't know whether you'd be able to see, but not to worry, because if you're watching the TV, you'll be able to see you. Meanwhile, we'll also be just, keeping up to tab as to what has been captured on the front pages. These are some of the stories that have been there for quite a while now. And just looking at the Standard newspaper is what I have right here with me. But first, we start with the Daily Nation, which I see Mheshimiwa has, and is also on the screen. Front page of the Daily Nation, Honorable Gakuya, Uhuru and Suluhu hit the reset button. This is also a story captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper, and equally a story captured on the front page of the People Daily. End of the road for BBI change proponents is also what we'll be looking at amid all these adjustments that have been done, and equally the conversation as to what way forward in regards to the BBI. So let's kickstart with Suluhu's visit briefly, because also we'll delve deep into that conversation as we look at the aspect of East African integration. Quite an impressive move. Honorable Gakuya.
Thank you, Rida. Allow me to salute the viewers wherever they are watching us this morning. On the matter praise to headlines of our daily papers. It's a great gesture to have such a guest within our midst. We are of what has been going on within our East African borders, and especially our relationship between Kenya and our brother and our sister country, Tanzania. And during the reign of the late Magufuli president, it is very true that actually the area has been very volatile, and we had a lot of issues where at some point you realize that even those hunters who normally graze the cattle there, Maasais, when a single cattle crosses to the border, actually faces a very serious, cruel and harsh verdict on the other end. And we did come to realize that in fact it was as bad as that a big number of herd cattle were auctioned from the other end of our neighbor. And also we realized that actually even those who dealt with what we call chicks, actually we found some time that were banned out, were subjected to be banned by the authorities. Then therefore it was quite shaky, and I think it's high time that in fact this is going to be reset. And our my issue with the current visit of the Madam Suluhu, now the current president of Tanzania, I wish her all the best. That she has shown a lot of a change of heart and are willing to bring back the lost glory. And I'm sure that I'm confident that in fact going forward, since yesterday, things will start changing. And at least we are going to have what we call cordial relationship, and especially cordial environment, especially within our borders, because we know very well that in fact our Tanzania and neighboring Uganda borders are very important to us, because we benefit a lot from them and they also benefit a lot from us. And when the borders are volatile, then it tells you there is a shutdown of number of business, and therefore is a big effect to our economy too, and also to our traders. Therefore, this is a very big roadmap and a milestone to both of us.
Right.
Because I'm sure
the country.
Tanzania will reap, and equally Kenya will reap out of this. That relationship is very important. And let me tell you, later before I close my remarks, that these are colonial borders. But we cannot say the Maasai in Tanzania cannot have a relationship with the Maasai in Kenya, because they are still brothers. And therefore that this is a big consideration, that the borders are not there just to put us divided, but actually those who are just marking of ordinary bordering, but actually is not an issue to do with blocking each other, as long as we are trying to build up our East African integration relationship.
All right, we are evidently doing it a little bit different, because this was one of the key things that we seek to address. But now that we got into the papers and somehow, appears that we can only look at this particular one, extensively, then I'd loop you in, Honorable Wahome, so that you can tell us your view on the coming in of Mama Suluhu Hassan. And, something that probably many would argue is as though she has gone against the wishes of her predecessor, that is John Pombe Magufuli, may his soul rest in eternal peace, because many then would have argued his was not, an interest of traveling different countries. His reign has been looked at as a good reign, but then again as one that probably scaffolded so much the efforts of East African integration. What would you say, and the fact that now Mama Samia Suluhu looks at this as though is the right move? Why would she not have, advised predecessor otherwise back then? What does it speak about the deputies in this scenario?
Okay, thank you very much. Again, good evening, Rita and Shimiwa. I would also wish to greet all my constituency, which is the MCAs and the speakers of this country, and also the people of Nyandarua, who I represent in the assembly as their speaker.
All right.
So I think to start with, this politics and even international relations is about perception. That Suluhu, the president of Tanzania, chose Kenya to be her first destination. And with the kind of Cold War we knew about, with the kind of a Cold War we knew about with the last administration, then it tells you that Tanzania, the president, have a lot of respect and they really value the relationship between the country and Kenya.
Right.
And therefore, I can tell you, leader, that across the business people in Kenya and Tanzania who do business with each other, they must be very settled and very happy and see the future as very promising. By that visit only, without even knowing what the visit entails. So I say it is very important also for cross-border trade, and the Mheshimiwa has mentioned about it, and even movement. It had become very, very difficult for our people who are the same people to even visit each other across the border and do those small businesses that make households to be able to move on with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that there will be some bilateral agreement on how to handle the pandemic that is COVID-19. And you realize that in the last administration with our country, there was a very big disconnect when it came to how to approach the things that relate to COVID. Most importantly, even for East Africa, when Kenya and Tanzania are talking, then you know that East Africa is well and that and it is settled, and definitely there will be a movement going forward.
Mm-hmm.
On the role of the deputies, I think that what is coming out is that Suluhu is a very, very solid person.
Okay.
But I don't think she had the platform to be able to show her leadership skills.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from what she has done for the last few weeks, history will remember her kindly.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the role of the deputies, and I think I'll throw it back to you, Mheshimiwa. On constant occasions, we have had, deputies crying foul. In the sense that they say, you know what, we're actually speaking about vice presidents and deputies. Ours is a little bit stronger, in a deputy, because then you go there and you're elected alongside the president. But just how much, power or a say do they have, especially in how, government runs its affairs? When you look at this scenario, and therefore probably Suluhu taking it, in lightning speed to address some of these issues, probably that Magufuli, opted out of addressing. You take ourselves back to the likes of Zimbabwe, right after, the exit or the ouster of Robert Mugabe. Then came in Mnangagwa, who was his deputy, and argued that, back then it was a one-man's show, that the president was running activities, his own way, and therefore there's nothing much I would have done in terms of changing the system of governance in the country. Come back to Uganda. Rarely will you hear, the name of the deputy president, the vice president in such, a scenario. Come back into the country. Such is not what we've witnessed, but over time, there's been lots of complaints from the deputy's office that, we have been segregated, we have been set aside. Is he not part and parcel of the presidency? And does it then show a scenario where African presidents will always run the show alone?
Linda, it is very true that in fact, in our African culture and tradition, it's totally different from outside, because you realize that in fact in America, once you are elected as a president, it becomes a pair, because you and your deputy, you are the presidency. Mm-hmm. And we always find a cordial working relationship between the head of state and his deputy, where the deputy is being given a lot of delegated works. But once you come to Africa, most of the deputies are fridged, because you find that in fact in a simple look out on how our counties are formulated. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to know who is the deputy governor of any county, because they are totally infringed. They are nowhere. Go to Muranga. Tell me, have you ever known who is the deputy governor in Muranga County? He never speaks anywhere.
All right.
And he's novice. Mm-hmm. But he's there infringed and tells us that we are electing some what we call governors that are small gods, mm-hmm. that cannot give us space to the deputy. And this is too long indeed, very bad indeed. And this is the history that we must think, yes, are we going to change these particular laws given by the Constitution, and at least the Constitution give directly laws to these deputy governors, because deputies in the Constitution, this is very clear, our Constitution is very clear that the deputy governor has no law. His law is power, his role is delegated to him by his boss. And that is automatically what happens in the counties. And therefore, it is the prerogative of the boss to give you a job. If he decides not, then you are idle in the office. Your job is just to walk in and read the newspaper. And if you want to leave, have a cup of tea. Once you want to leave. But let me tell you, it should be a shareable, a collective way of decision making, because you are part and parcel of that leadership. But when it comes that you are being sidelined, then it becomes difficult for you as a deputy even to air your views that most likely could be able to add value on your boss leadership. And this is what happened in Nairobi County. You realize that, in fact, when the deputy governor realized that his ideas cannot work, he's trying to push them to his boss, and his boss is totally against that direction. Well, the next thing was to resign, because you become powerless. And let me tell you, when you become powerless, you become a stooge, and then you feel that actually you cannot be such a valueless person in that particular position for 5 good years. And in this particular case, I will tell you that's what has been happening in Tanzania. That this particular lady, being the deputy or vice president of the Magufuli, she had no power, because she had to be loyal to his boss. And that loyalty, there are those things that she cannot utter to the boss because of those stands that the boss starts with. The boss was so categorical that there is nothing to do with the coronavirus in Tanzania. Right. And therefore, if the boss stand is that, no matter this particular lady as his vice president or deputy had the knowledge that this matter has been taken another angle, she could not be able to utter a word or publicly utter a word that will contravene the position of the president. And therefore, most of the good things she has today were sealed to herself, because she could not be able to place them anywhere. And in fact, she could be able to share them with the media, but that probably could cause her kicked out, her being shown out, shown out of the same position. And therefore, unless we rethink and redesign the mandates that we have given to our deputies, including our deputy president, then they will become those cabbage, those stooges in those positions. Because you realize that, like now, our example of deputy president, at some point we realized the head of state was so biased with his deputy. At some point he said, yes, I need now to change the style of leadership, and I am now going to promote the minister for security to take over the job that my deputy president is undertaking.
But that's not what the president said. And let's go back to the Constitution, Mheshimiwa, and we realize that some of these things that were awarded to the CS for Interior to focus much on or address are probably what it is that one would have looked around and said that this is what the deputy president used to do. But then again, it's not stipulated in the Constitution that is what he should do, and therefore he's at the mercy of the president. The president decides what he is going to tell him to do. Why would it be looked at as though powers have been taken away from the DP to the CS?
In a clear face and perception, the perception was very clear that the action was taken to reduce the speed, the movement and the speed the deputy president taking. But that is not fair. The president said no campaigns. And for me, really, what we need also to understand is that the deputy president was not moving out, opening projects for government, indicating to the people that they are his own. But he was popularizing the government,
agendas of the government.
The agendas of the government.
Is it so?
That is it. But there is no single moment or time that he went and opened a project and stated, "This is my own initiative." He always been provoking the name or uttering the name of the president and himself and their government.
Hold it right there.
Because government is a unitary, and therefore that is the reason why that particular act was created, is purely to toe down.
I still maintain that is not what the president said. And just looking at the events of yesterday, Emmanuel Talam, the communications director at the DP's office, says that the DP was not invited into State House, during that Samia Suluhu's visit, or President Samia Suluhu's sure. And so the question then would be, what could have informed this? This is not what we've seen in the past. Most of the times when heads of state would visit, you find that, the Deputy President William Ruto is always in attendance, in some of these particular sessions. And so he was following the proceedings from his current home. Coming to you, Honorable Wahome, one, are we hitting the president so hard? Is it genuine that there's some level of segregation that has been witnessed? Do you agree with the statements of Mheshimiwa that indeed back then, when there was that executive order that got Matiang'i getting a couple of other duties to focus on, is something that was targeted towards toning the speed of the DP?
Okay, thank you, Rida. Rida, to start with, I would want to say that it is clear that the chemistry that brought in the president and his deputy to power in 2013, that chemistry started withering when it came to 2018. Okay. Actually, it is just a matter of looking at it, and you could tell that the seamless and harmonious movement towards the same objectives had changed, and directions. And secondary leader, hello?
Yes.
Secondary leader is that in the African experience, there has been a problem that there has always been one leader. Even most of the parables related to how governance in the African society happens is that there is only one. It did not the presence of an assistant who is kind of playing a role in the governance or in the leadership of certain situations. And this is what actually we should have been able to address in the Constitution and even in the County Government Act, as Mheshimiwa said about the experience within the counties. Because the architecture of our Constitution is such that the Deputy President or Vice President is not given powers that are very clearly defined, and that the Deputy President or the Vice President would be able to do their things. And they are not relations laid down. Every president comes with their own style of leadership. But like in America, you'll find that there is a very clear tradition of what a vice president should do, even if it is not written. The same case with the other old democracies. But this is not the same. And I'm kind of disappointed, actually, that the issue of the deputy president and the issue of deputy governors in the BBI process, that they have not been exhaustively addressed, despite the mischief that we have seen since the enactment of the new constitution in 2010. Therefore, I would say that it has been a problem, and it impacts very negatively in the growth and prosperity of nations and also of counties when these roles are not well defined, and when the traditions of the societies do not dictate how those kind of arrangements are supposed to work.
All right, well, allow us to take a short break, and we come back, expound some more on the visit of President Samia Suluhu Hassan, even as we look at the rules of the deputy or the deputies.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongee zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Ndio nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444 hash utunukiwe Credo Double Double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections,
as the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5 years term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
They give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this: are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I don't
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision.
Well, make sure to join us on a Morning Cafe, where we have comprehensive political debates, newspaper review, in-depth analysis on matters of business, alongside KCK, lifestyle talks that will involve matters health, fitness, and not forgetting nutrition. And to cream it all on Friday, that is on Feel Good Friday, where we allow you to interact with the entertainment gurus as we close the week. With me, Linda Alela. Welcome back to the broadcast. Honorable James Gakuya, Member of Parliament, Embakasi North, is with me in studio, and joining us virtually, Honorable Ndego Ahome, who's the Chair, County Assemblies Forum, and equally the Speaker for Nyandarua County. And still on that conversation, now that is probably the biggest story that I know is captured across all the papers. We might want to look at the goodies that are coming out of this, and I think we have touched on them, and we say this is quite progressive for the sake of East African unity. President Suluhu will also make history as the first woman who gets or the first female commander-in-chief who gets to address the august house. You know, it's quite an honor, as they would say, for a president to visit a country and they're allowed to, address the parliament. It's something that, happens once in a while. It is historic. We've seen Jakaya Kikwete doing the same when he got into the country sometimes in 2015. And therefore, there's so much that is probably anticipated. Your expectations for the day, Honorable Gakuya?
One
you will be in parliament?
Yes.
All right.
Linda, what I want to tell you and the public very quickly is that first and foremost, my biggest concern is the manner in which our president's relationship between him and his deputy, perception is moving on a very shaky way. Because in such a visit of such a serious neighbor, I expected that in fact the president will be invited to be part of the team that actually received him yesterday in State House. Therefore, that one, I was expecting that in fact there could be that kind of arrangement. But unfortunately, I watched the TV and I couldn't see him anywhere. That's one step that at least...
And perhaps they could have shared, because Mama Samia Hassan Suluhu comes from this very space where it is that the deputy is at this particular point, in the sense that she was the vice president of Tanzania before she ascended to power after the demise of her predecessors. And therefore, maybe they would have had so much to probably... I
can tell you, there is a lot of much to be shared between the two deputies, because for sure it's only a month when this lady took over. There before, she had held that position at that deputy level.
Yeah.
And since the meeting with the deputy of this particular end, I think there was a lot to share. But that's not an issue, and I think that in fact it will be handled on another level. Then we come to our expectation in the National Assembly and what we expect from this particular guest. One, let me tell you, leader, that in fact I am telling you that from the beginning that in fact is a very good guest to us. And despite that, in fact, we are in a big competition with Tanzania. The competition is a healthy competition, and it should be left as a healthy competition. One, we are in a serious competition because both of us, we enjoy what we call coastal, and those coastals our two countries have harbors, and harbors, you know, is an entry point to most of the goods that actually transit to the landlocked countries, those especially Uganda, Rwanda, and other neighboring countries. And therefore, that competition to make sure that one of us wins the biggest chunk of that business or that trade is a competition. And realize that, in fact, as we are doing our SGR railway, Tanzania is also busy doing their SGR, and they want to reach all the way to Rwanda, so that they can be able to touch Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, all the way using their SGR to their harbor. And also you can see that there was a very serious competition of what we call pipeline. And yes, Tanzania was able to convince Uganda, and Uganda now has taken that route of pipeline from Uganda to Tanzania.
Right.
That was a big business that actually we lost as a nation.
We did.
As a nation. So therefore, is our biggest competitor in terms of winning business of our landlocked countries. And therefore, that should be treated on that way, and we should leave it. We should leave the competition to be healthy to whoever will win the biggest chunk on that nature. But our relationship between the two countries must be left cordial and should work on the best environment. Why? Because despite that we have a competition, we still have a lot to share with Tanzania as a country. This is in the area of trade, and we trade a lot with them.
Right.
You move to what we call Wakulima market. Yes. You realize oranges, most of them comes from Tanzania. You realize most of the products that are actual fruit products comes from there. And issue to do with the onions, the those red onions, and many other things that are agricultural products comes from Tanzania. Equally the same, they also get a lot from our manufacturers. Move to East Bania as one of our border. If once we move to border, I have been in business in that particular East Bania, Tarime border all the way to Mwanza.
Yeah.
And I can tell you for sure, they import a lot from Kenya, and they import from commodities from salt to many others.
Right.
But so to other manufacturer products. And therefore, they are also part of our biggest consumers of what we can call industrial products.
Okay.
Therefore, the relationship between the two should be made so cordial that in fact it exists without any interruption of any other kind of hiccups that may arise. And to me, this particular visit, the Suluhu coming to National Assembly, to me is just to stamp that we have opened a new chapter or a new roadmap that going forward we shall be addressing our issues on a cordial and decorum forums, other than the previous where they could hit us so handily, and we had nowhere to appeal. And in this particular case, I'm sure Suluhu has given an indicator that in fact those East Africa integration issues that were unable to be addressed by the ERA House at Arusha actually now are able to be addressed by the two head of state.
All right.
And that one, it gives a clear roadmap that going forward, there will be peace. And that peace will create our business and trade, and therefore we will be back to the track.
And speaking of, a roadmap, the blueprints, in solidifying the same, she directed ministers who form the Joint Permanent Commission from Tanzania and Kenya to meet and agree on different issues to strengthen the ties. And therefore, we are expecting so much later on after meeting the joint sitting of the National Assembly. She's also expected to meet business community or local business community as well as investors. What do you make of, her visit, and importantly, the fact that she gets to have a sitting with members of parliament? Honorable Wahomea.
Thank you, Rita. I would want to say that the very fact that President Suluhu Hassan, that Kenya was her first destination as president.
Second from Uganda.
Second from Uganda.
Oh, second from Uganda, yes. It shows the kind of importance that she attaches to Kenya as a partner in the East African community and to a large extent also the African continent. And further that she is going to address the joint sitting of parliament of both houses. It entrenches more that this is not an ordinary visit. We expect that Parliament, as the lawmakers in this country, that there are a lot of things that after she leaves, Parliament will be required to process to ensure that the integration between the way we do things with Tanzania are put within a legal regime. And I'm expecting that Mheshimiwa Kuya and the other members will have a lot to do after the president leaves Kenya, in terms of policies, in terms of regulations, in terms of registration, and to ensure that things are made easy for the people in East Africa. And mainly is that the easement of movement of goods and services is very critical, because it has been a very, very serious handicap on how we do business with our brothers and sisters in Tanzania. So that will be very, very critical. I also believe that immigration will be revisited since the coming in of the late President John Pombe Magufuli. There has been a lot of issues when it comes to immigration. I think these are also going to be eased to ensure that there is a flow of trade, both human, there is goods and services across the two borders, which are regulated in a way that is humane, and that all of us feel that we are brothers and sisters and we are able to work together for the prosperity of ourselves as a people and our nations. There is also the blue economy. Blue economy is the in thing now, and I believe that there will be a lot of movement in terms of registration and policies to ensure that we are speaking we are leading from the same page in terms of the blue economy, and also the issues of maritime security. Although now it is not a very major issue, but because of the coastline that we share, there will be a lot of things that require to be streamlined and well defined in terms of how we address the maritime security. There are so many bilateral agreements that are there on free trade, and most of them you'll find that there is a lot of conflict when goods are going to Tanzania or when they are coming to Kenya. I believe these are some of the issues that require to be revisited. So what I'm saying is that the commission that is going to sit down, because the president's already they have, I believe, before the president came, there are people who have been sitting down to thrash out all those issues. I believe that they are going to sign a very serious and comprehensive document addressing all the mischief that we have identified in the last few years, and that now Parliament and the bureaucracy that is government are going to attend to them, and that in the next few months we are going to see ourselves engaging differently with Tanzania than we have been doing in the past.
All right, and we await to see the proceedings of today, and importantly, what happens then after that. We do not want to delve much into, the politics that has been there. The fact that Tanzania has really, for a long time, showcased more of interest, lying on the side of SADC. But we hope that this then will come in handy to make sure that the ties in East Africa.
I can tell you, Linda, only what we need is Tanzania to adopt the integration agreed measures. Yes, and remove those tedious handles, because you cannot move into Tanzania. The other countries you can enter with just a pass.
Yes.
But in Tanzania you must have the passport.
Yes.
They can't allow if those matters are going to be addressed, then they give the rest of the business traders a free movement without necessarily these terms and conditions.
All right. Okay. Well, there's so much that we can discuss about that, but we leave it at it as we await to get a clear picture of what comes out of this. You mentioned something to do with Bill Gates. You want to say something about that? We necessarily have to say that, honestly.
I can tell you, because actually, I have just learned a lot from this departure.
Yes.
Because surely, I realize, in fact, us as an African, we are too much back. And actually, the manner in which we treat our partners is totally high neck.
Yes.
Because surely you find that once you quarrel with your spouse, the next minute you do is find out how to execute. And you find that actually we are having very serious matters in our couples' marriages, where you find that, in fact, either once you get a quarrel, you find that, in fact, the man wakes up and burns the house and go. And leave the children and the wife burnt in the room. Or taking any other nasty route to make sure that you have punished that family we have a case of a military officer in Laikipia who called his family there, but the next minute all of them were found on a grave. So it is that tedious that we need to learn from others. I am just seeing a scenario where this man, with all billions of money, at the point where he feels that now the time has come now to divorce with my loved spouse, there is no fire. It is too cool. It's like normal.
And are you getting, or am I getting? Goodbye.
Yes, the gentleman, before even making a statement, he has already done the spirit of the resources.
And the resources,
immediately he's going just to hand over this particular document of divorce. Then her wife has everything, and you see, very well tabulated that it's only that we are no longer going to be one, but in business we still remain as partners.
Okay.
That is very historic.
That is historic, I can tell you.
And it's a matter that we need to learn, so that at least we change our way of doing things.
Not the keyboard style.
Yes,
not the keyboard style. Not the keyboard style.
At the end of the day, reader, I met you when you were mature.
Right.
You met me when I was mature. Then there's no need of me leaving you harmed. Yes, if it has come a tell time that it cannot move forward, then let us leave each other in peace.
That's true.
Yes.
All right, well, it's something that is trending up until today. That is from yesterday, and I guess there's nothing much to say about that. We come back to the politics in the country. Uhuru changes tune on a purge against DP allies, and that is one thing that has been making headlines. There's more or less like a split that is within the Jubilee Party. And there is evident a split again also in ODM, one of the biggest progressive parties in the country. And now this tune that we're talking about is the fact that, the Jubilee Party, those members of Keleweke, had a sitting for a moment to deliberate on whether they should now cut ties with UDA completely or not. But this did not bear fruit because, well, there's a bit of confusion and a clear split between this, and therefore they probably just decided that they're going to keep UDA in. Murathe says, in our heads, UDA is no longer a partner in Jubilee, so there is no need for further conversation on this matter. Really, Honorable Speaker?
Leader, I think the Political Parties Act is very clear on pre-coalition agreements and the disputes arising therefrom. And I think what UDA has done is to trigger and declare that there is a dispute between it and the Jubilee Party. And there is a very, very clear legal infrastructure of how that kind of a dispute can be resolved. And you'll find that from the time that UDA declared a dispute with Jubilee, the Jubilee itself acknowledged that they have to address the dispute that has been declared by UDA. I'm not sure whether yesterday they were able to agree on how to address that dispute, but we are going to see a lot of this, because at the end of the day, I expect that they will not agree. And if they don't agree, they will resort to the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal for that particular dispute to be resolved there. If it is any party is not satisfied there, you'll find that either of the parties will go to the High Court for the same to be determined and adjudicated upon at the High Court. What you find is that for the UDA, they will fight to the last man to ensure that they are in the coalition, because they are not ready to go to by-elections. Because if that coalition, pre-election coalition is dissolved, then all the members of parliament and all elected state officers who associate with UDA, they would be required to resign their positions and seek a fresh mandate. I don't see any politician as of now that in 15 months to elections wanting to go back to the people at this time. They wanted to polish up and tie the loose ends in their constituencies so that they are ready for the next year's general election.
Well, the party's National Management Committee ruled out any talks with the UDA associated with Ruto over its decision to end the pre-election pact. Initially, of course, they were the Party of Development and Reforms, that is PDR, and now rebranded to UDA. And from that statement by Murathe, because when he speaks, we know he's spoken volumes, and he's probably spoken the position of the president, if not the party. I'll use his words again. In our heads, UDA is no longer a partner in Jubilee, so there is no need for further conversation on this matter. I have heard this statement before, Honorable Gakuya, probably from you and a couple of other Jubilee members come UDA members or Tanga side, saying that, you know what, we are just in Jubilee physically. So it's not a new statement.
Arinda, I think the statement with Murathe yesterday, to me, is quite welcome. Because at the tail end, it's very clear that yes, despite that the negotiations are not going to be tolerated anymore, as long as the members will be limiting their dues to the party of Jubilee, and they are not going to attack Jubilee, they don't care. And their aim is not to punish those who are going to be affected by elections. And that, to me, is quite acceptable. That's only what we need. We need that freedom. Okay. If that freedom is there, Because surely, as of now, there is no way the environment within Jubilee can be able to work.
But just more freedom.
Unless they create it back. Because it is not the members of the Jubilee who decided to pull out. It's like, yes, the party was so candid to push them out. But at some point, because there is no way that at least the head of the deputy president could decide to move to look for a new phase without having those challenges that he faced. And you realize at some point he has no say in that particular party. He has no say in any decision making. And therefore, if we cannot even decide whether the party can field a candidate anywhere in any single by-election, and he cannot be consulted of anything, then tells you that he's totally toothless in that particular party. And therefore, it can tell you that there was a lot of fire inside that is not giving him any single room. And at that particular point, one has to decide, if I keep on here, if I cling here, what is the expectation at the tail end? And I am an ambitious presidential candidate come 2022. Do I have a right when I kept in here and still wait for the final whistle? And the signs that are very clear and the indicators are very clear, this party is not ready even to give me a ticket.
All right, and which he said, if the house is in order and he's a member, yes.
If I would add on that one, you realize that Murat's pronouncement, he is doing it from his side. And I've said there is a lot at stake. And there are so many seats that would be on the shopping board.
Let's overlook those seats and just focus on the deputy president, who affirmed at some point in time in a TV interview that he's really been segregated by the president. He probably might not need to go through all these processes that members of parliament might have to. Why not resign? Just how much of a leeway does he have for him, on his side in the event that he decides to resign, that would probably allow him that opportunity?
I would not want to speak for him, but what I would say is that if such a declaration had been made that there are no ties between UDA and the Jubilee Party, I don't believe that he would have made that statement directly associating with UDA. And over and above the deputy president, you will note that the deputy majority leader in the Senate is a member of PR, and therefore it would mean that there would be very serious impact on that coalition agreement being disengaged with. And I'm saying, reader, that with the kind of things that are at stake, leave alone the other issues of individual decision making, but the impact on the political infrastructure would be so huge that I want to tell you that this is a debate that will be there for a long time to come, and it will be in the courts, and that it will go even up to the elections. You will note that there has been a lot of the ODM in 2017, it expelled about 12 members. At the end of the day, they were in office until the elections were done. We know Jubilee has expelled the senators from the party. I know most likely they will be there until the end of the term of parliament. So we are saying that we have not seen anything about this dispute between UDA and Jubilee.
It's yet to begin. All right, so let's take a short break, gentlemen, and also look at that dispute that lies within the ODM. That is after Amolu was kicked out of House team, a split grows over BBI. Just what needs to be done to make sure that we move ahead with this conversation on the constitutional amendment bill that is 2020. More of that after this break.
Let's go beyond. Mimi na wewe tu.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongee zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Nitajua vile nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444# utunukiwe credo double double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections,
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
they give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I don't lose.
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision.
Well, make sure to join us. So the first segment, as we look at the BBI, what way forward, and we ask, even as the President of Tanzania, Suluhu Hassan, is going to be in bunge today, the question is, why is it that bunge itself has not been able to get this Suluhu on matters BBI? And also, before we get to that, definitely we look at the adjustments that have been made within the ODM party after some members of parliament were looked at, as individuals that are going against the wishes of the party leader. And of course, we all are privy to what it is that his wishes are, that the BBI document should sail through at the level of parliament, should be endorsed by members of parliament before it gets to the level of the people. ODM kicks out Amolo from House team, a split grows over BBI. The split is on in as much as we had that address by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, saying that there's not going to be any level of amendments on this particular document. Mheshimiwa, it's still not clear. We still do not have Suluhu on this one.
It's not true that, in fact, I read this before even the Speaker pronounced himself to this statement.
Yeah.
And I was very much sure that the both speakers of bilateral parliament are not going to allow these amendments, because actually they are under stiff instructions, and they have to be loyal to their boss.
Even before it gets to the level of the speaker, Mheshimiwa, allow me to ask this, and I think this is what I should have started by asking. If it is in broad daylight and it's almost clear that Parliament is going to sail this through, what are they waiting for? Why are they playing, these games? Is it because there's a demand that they wish to have, met?
Very clearly, Rida, I can tell you, according to the procedure of this particular passage of bill, then you cannot lock the members to debate to extensively this document. Yeah. But actually, debating on the document actually does not mean that people are totally against it, because once they debate, it gives a perception to the support you are writing, because you stand against the bill. Somebody else stands, contributes pro-bill. At the end of the day, the speaker will raise what we call a vote, which will not only necessitate a simple majority. That one, after that, the business is done. But because the passage has to pass through Parliament, the Parliament cannot just pass it with just a matter of a simple question. It must sail through the three stages of the House. Right. First and foremost is the first reading, second reading, and the final third reading of the bill. And then the Speaker calls for the vote. And now, I am sure, this matter, we thought that the Speaker will close entire extra days to debate for the bill, but actually he gave a leave to the entire House to debate for it, and that's why it was not based to the only 2 days that the House was recalled. And then it was extended because the members did not exhaust the debate.
Okay.
But at the tail end, then there has to be these questions. Because I'm sure most of the debaters will be able to be debating, directing their willingness for the bill to be altered or to be amended. But the action by the Speaker yesterday, it is just to prepare members that he's not ready to be pushed to open any paradox of opening this document. That was the message he gave yesterday. And that's very clear, and that's okay. Because actually he must also protect his job. And I have no problem with that. But one thing I am totally against, leader, is the manner in which this has been propagated, because the constitutional order currently does not obstruct the House to do anything to do with the amendment of any bill. Despite whether the bill is popular bill, who is the representative of the people in the National Assembly and the Senate? It is the members of those 2 houses. And let me tell you, no matter how the weight of the bill is, whether it is popular from the people,
yes,
and in what we call the sovereignty of the people, who holds that sovereignty of the people as a representative? It is the members of the National Assembly and the Senate. Then you can tell me they are powerless, they are toothless, they cannot amend anything, or they can go. At the end of the day, the tail end, this document is not going to be opened by Wanjiku himself. It is going the way it is. Once you fail to amend anything that you thought it is good for Wanjiku at the stage of your debate, at what point do you expect?
But
so that I finish. The biggest question comes is this. Most of the others tells us that it's a property. This is a property of Wanjiku and should be left to Wanjiku to decide. If he decides that the bill has something wrong, he entirely going to vote against it. Or if he thinks that the bill is have anything to do with her, he's just going to support the bill at the tail end. My question is, why do we want to see this bill being dropped by Wanjiku at the end? Because of some small things that we could amend at a stage.
Do you think this is in the best interest of the bill, honestly, Mheshimiwa?
I can tell
that you think if these amendments are done, then Wanjiku is in a position to.
I can tell you, most of this fire comes. It's not coming from individual members of the House. We represent the people. When we go back to the people advise us. They tell us. And then you feel that they have pain in a particular clauses in that particular bill.
Then what just happened?
As much as they have no room to get to that particular amendment. And actually they made the last whistle in the last public participation that was brought for that was constituted by the membership of the National Assembly of the bilateral House. If those views were just for sake, it was not meant to assist Wanjiku anyhow, then why was that process directed to that particular route?
Hold it right there. Honorable Speaker, this bill passed through the level of the nation or the county assemblies. Do you want to tell me, or should we then assume that the county assemblies did not take much time to ponder on the bill such that they would address the interests of the people? Because, well, when Parliament speaks of a scenario where they are addressing these needs on behalf of the people, then we ask ourselves, couldn't they have been addressed at the level of the county assemblies as early as that point? And did you even debate on the correct document, maybe, as Nyandarua County?
Yes, Leader, we actually debated the correct document. And the main issue about this Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 is that it is very clear about the intention.
Yes.
if it is even where some of the crosses that they indicate a cross that is not existent, but the content is very clear on what was meant to be achieved by that particular proposed amendment. What we would want to say, when the law is very clear, the Constitution is very clear about a parliamentary initiative and a popular initiative under Article 257 of the Constitution. Already it was ruled by the two houses of Parliament that this was a popular initiative. When it becomes a popular initiative, neither the county assemblies nor Parliament can amend. And as a lawyer, for that matter, I would say that for whatever reasons, I would agree with the Honorable Justin Muturi that especially for Parliament, their role is purely ceremonial. And I would say this without any fear of contradiction. For the county assemblies, our role is not ceremonial, because if we rejected that document, that would have been the end of BBI. But for Parliament, even if they reject, the document that left the assemblies will still go to referendum. If Parliament even amended the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020, it would still have gone to the people in the original form that it left the county assemblies. So actually, the role of Parliament in this matter is very, very ceremonial, and it can never stop the document that left the county assemblies to go to the people. My only issue is about the intolerance. Like my classmate and a very, very good man and a very, very brilliant mind for this country, Otiede Amoro, that he is suffering because of offering his views. He is in Parliament to represent his views. He has a future. And when he is looking at the future, he is also looking at the present and into the past. And he will be judged by that. He has a right, a constitutional right, to go to that floor of the House and express himself and his sentiments, even if they will not impact on the Constitutional Amendment Bill at all. And why, leader, you find that the parliamentary role is very ceremonial. Even this bill does not go even through the readings, the first, the second, third reading. It is adoption of the report. Because there is no provision where you can be able to interact with that document. You can go there and address the document. And what we did as the assemblies of this country is that we looked at the document, and because we knew we would only reject it or approve it, we looked at areas where they will require statutory provisions for implementation. And therefore, we offered our opinion on what statutes we would want it to be enacted to ensure that the Constitution is operationalized, especially on the areas that touches on the county assemblies. Like the Old Development Fund, we need a statute. Like the County Assemblies Fund, we need amendment of the PMFA, that is Public Finance Management Act. On the county government, we need an amendment so that the MCAs can also be county executive committee members, all those issues. Therefore, the only main input we made in our report and which we presented to Parliament, it is what we would want done in implementation of the Constitution. But I can say, without any fear of contradiction, that the way the document left the people who hold the sovereignty of decision-making in the country at Article 1 of the Constitution, then it would happen. My fear, leader, is that with the kind of statements that have been made in Parliament, which most of them are correct, even the role of the IBC in creating constituencies, that this will be fodder for litigants in this Kenya. Kenya is a very litigious country. There will be many people moving to court. Even Parliament observed that this was unconstitutional.
And therefore, why not avoid such a scenario at this early stage? I mean, you look at brains like those of Senior Counsel James Orengo countering this, and you know, he has accepted to go to levels where he's not in good terms with some of the party members, with Right Honorable Raila Odinga. He argues that this is going to create a divisive document that will be heaved down the throats of the innocent Kenyans. In such a scenario, don't you think that we need to for a moment, sit back and ask ourselves this, that in as much as maybe constitutionally we might not be allowed, or the National Assembly or maybe the Senate might not be allowed to alter this particular document, but within the very same constitution, there's a clause that speaks of public interest, and therefore, if it is in the public interest for us to have a document that is proper, then why not?
Leader, the main problem is that it cannot be a bigger public interest than the people who decided and initiated this constitutional amendment bill. Okay. Wherever it is coming, but the issue is that it is agreed that it is a popular initiative, therefore coming from the people. So it is assumed that it is already serving the public interest. I was thinking that with the kind of mischief we have experienced as a country, that within this constitutional amendment bill, that we would have at the very initial stages wanted to look at Article 257, where then the county assemblies and parliament of this country would have some input even on the popular initiative. Unfortunately, Article 257 has been left intact. Even when we shall be having a second amendment in this country, there will still be a very major problem because we shall go through the same route.
But just how clear is Article 257 on this matter? Mheshimiwa, I'm sure you've gone through the article. How clear is it, in the wordings and the positioning of these words and all that? I mean, how clear is it that Parliament should not? Because I have personally also gone through it, and it's not so evident, it's not so clear that indeed, yes, it's not expressive that indeed Parliament should not deliberate on this. Or if they should deliberate, they should not make any amendments.
Leader, you should know that it is very clear. It says that even if the Parliament rejects that document,
yes, it will still sail through.
Go to the people. It can never be more clear.
Okay.
So they are always.
So if Parliament cannot, if Parliament is to reject this and it goes to the people, then it does not state that Parliament should not amend in the event that they feel that there's some, things that should be amended, or maybe, well, the interpretation should be all different legally.
What I'm saying is that when it is said that whatever Parliament does, even rejection, that it will still go to the people.
Does not count, okay?
And the same document.
Okay.
It also means that even any input that Parliament will make, still the same document that
goes to the people. Okay. All right, but then again, do you agree that this triggers a conversation that we should have? Maybe the loopholes?
Actually, Linda, what I can say, the scholars of legal interpretation actually has been interpreting this differently. Because you cannot stand here and convince me that legal minds like of Honorable Rengo and Honorable Otiende are too bullish that actually they don't understand the implications. In this particular element where the Constitution says in that Article 257 that the document, even though it is dropped in the House, it must see the light of the day. That is very correct.
Yes.
But there is no anywhere that particular clause criminalizes any amendment at the stage of National Assembly or Senate. It does not expound that. And therefore, a great need of mind and interpretation of the highest court of the land, and this is either the High Court or the Supreme Court, must come up with that interpretation. And that is why we are having a case that actually already ongoing, that actually has already given an order of stay, not for any commencement of referendum process after. It's only that the houses are not blocked from doing their job, but actually the head of state is locked by that order, and the IEBC cannot proceed with that particular implementation of that process before the judiciary gives a verdict. And in this one, I'm just waiting to see, because at this point, I am sure this interpretation should be taken and enjoined in that particular matter. Issues to do with this unconstitutionality that actually people like Okinolengo are overseeing, you just find somebody moving to court. And what the court will do? The court will enjoin all these with the current case going on, and then they will give us interpretation of the whole process, which will determine whether the whole BBI process was in order or not. In the first place, I want to tell you, this is a document which was initiated by two principals. It is not people's. This is two principals that initiated the document.
But
and therefore, it is more, we can say, it is married now between now what we can call popular and the...
And in most cases, Mheshimiwa, you'll agree with me that while we speak of popular initiative, we don't necessarily mean that this has to emanate from them. There has to be at least one individual too that will trigger that conversation. And so I'd want to assume that these principles were the triggers of this particular conversation. But as we have gone through time, this document has gone through all the progressive stages that would want to qualify and quantify it as a people's initiative document.
I have no problem with that, but all what I have, the problem I have is only one, that who is the representative of the mass in the registration?
Okay.
If not the national, if not the two houses of the National Assembly and the Senate. If the two houses are powerless to do any single amendment, and the law has not criminalized this, then you are telling me you are taking that risk to Wanjiku again, or Wanjiku to criminalize the bill and shut it down.
Wanjiku, who might not have gone through the bill as it is, that's the biggest fear, Honorable Wahome, the fact that, we do not even know what document goes to the people. And even as we speak about this, we're speaking about Parliament, and you probably remember this, it's very common, but there's this special one that happened in Parliament where, the question was, will as many are of the contrary opinion say nay? And very many people said nay, and before you knew it, the speaker said the ayes have it. Doesn't it worry you that then we are hugely stifling the process of democracy in the country? If the honorable member would sit here and tell us that, someone would just do this to protect their job, going against the wish of the people, or going against what is stipulated in the Constitution, just so they would protect their jobs?
Leader, let me tell you as a lawyer, and I'm more inclined towards constitutionalism. Towards constitutionalism, I would want to say that I'm not very comfortable with both Article 56 and 57 of our Constitution of 2010. At the end of the day, I think those two articles of the Constitution, they make the constitution-making process very mechanical. Like now in the county assemblies, we were supposed to do public participation, we were supposed to debate, but finally, we were only allowed to either reject or approve. And if we rejected, we killed the whole document. If we allowed it, it goes to Parliament. When it gets to Parliament, it is even worse. And these are constitutional provisions. And that is that even if Parliament does not agree with the document, it will still go to the people. What does that mean? It means that Parliament is not invited to do anything to that document. If the ultimate rejection will still take the same document to the people, clearly you can see that there is no role of Parliament. And as Mheshimiwa is saying, I'm saying the way the Constitution is crafted, the very architecture of the Constitution does not allow Parliament to do what they are attempting to do. They can go and talk, they can do anything else, but they are not allowed any discourse within that particular document. And that is very dangerous for a country. That's
and on this one, you're citing 256 and 257, not 56 and 57, right?
Yes, it's 256 and 257, yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, as we come to a close, Honorable Gakuya, the other time we're here with you, before even the conversation was on, you are of the idea that members of Parliament should stop all these shenanigans, proceed to ascend this or debate on this, have it sail through to the next level. Have you in a way changed your tone? Or what could have informed that decision, as much as you're confident that an amendment should be necessary?
I can tell you, Rida, I have not changed my mind, but this is the reality, that as a member and as people's representative, I feel very pained.
Yeah.
When we push a bill which has not criminalized in law, in what majority want to state. I would wish that this interpretation is left to the court of law. Because if us, as the National Assembly and the rest of the team of legal minds differ on such a kind of scenario, because this is a huge dispute. Because we may find a situation where these things that are being indicated as unconstitutional in the report of the joint committee is a matter probably that will be taken to court.
Yes.
And which can cause the halt of the whole document.
That's true.
Then why do you punish and all usage of all these resources only to find the final product being shut down either by our legal processes, or by the Wanjiko at the tail end. A matter that actually could be harmonized at the stage of the National Assembly, and where the Constitution does not criminalize such kind of process. I think what we require here is clear legal interpretation of those two clauses, those two articles, 256 and 257. Because as they stand, the lawyer now is interpreting it on his own way.
Yes.
But other lawyers are interpreting it on the other angle.
And in this case, I'll allow the lawyer to come in, Mheshimiwa. We cannot have a conversation of these articles in isolation, because we're speaking about upholding the Constitution. And therefore, if members of Parliament have a feeling that there are some clauses within this particular bill that go against what is enshrined in the Constitution, and then we pinpoint on the Constitution as a tool that stops them from debating on this particular one, don't you think these two are contradictory? And like Mheshimiwa says, and like you had noted earlier on, that this bill seeks lots, or risks, a scenario where it will be vulnerable to so much litigation in court, and therefore probably the process might be quashed even before it gets to the people. As we close.
I think, Rita, the Parliament, in my very respective opinion, catered their duty. When they were advised by Professor Odote,
yes, and Patricia Bote,
that some of the clauses were unconstitutional, and for the reasons that Parliament has no timelines within which to deal with the constitutional amendment bill, unlike the assemblies which are given 90 days. I think Parliament, because this is the first amendment, and we should have gone and approached the Constitutional Court in the High Court, or the Supreme Court, as the Mheshimiwa is saying now, before they take any further step to interpret Article 256 and 257 of the Constitution, so that they can be able to put this country in the right standing when it comes to constitutional amendment. Parliament never did this. What they have done is mainly to play politics with an otherwise very, very serious process. And what Parliament is doing is merely lamenting when they would have been able to address the fundamentals by, on behalf of this country and the people it represent, moving to the court for the proper interpretation so that this matter would have been settled for once and for all.
All right, gentlemen, let's go to that.
But also, don't forget that, in fact, the Speaker of the National Assembly was very clear yesterday that he has powers to amend the errors.
Right.
I don't know where he's getting the powers to amend the errors from.
Well,
if nothing else can be amended in the whole concept.
It's
and I'm not sure whether it will also be treated as unconstitutional to amend anything, including errors in that document.
Okay, well, and yes?
Maybe on that one, to make it right, the standing orders actually gives the Speaker, including myself, not to amend, but to correct errors. Like now, where it refers to the IBC and quotes the wrong clause. You are allowed as the Speaker to do that, and if Mheshimiwa Gakuya would look at their standing orders, the Speaker is actually allowed to do that.
Well, and he says the bill that they received in Parliament was similar to what is in IEBC, had only 2 typos, and therefore we're looking at these typos as the errors that we're referring to. It is an interesting process. We are all watching eagerly to get to know what next for the BBI. Gentlemen, allow us to close it at that. Honorable James Gakuya, Member of Parliament, Embakasi North, and Honorable Degwa Wahome, Chair, County Assemblies Forum, and also the Speaker for Nyandarua. It was good having you this morning. We are eagerly waiting for what happens next.